I'll be talking about why investors should be using a Cyprus company to structure their global investments. Now, a Cyprus company offers important benefits to business owners and investors, primarily due to the country's business-friendly environment and tax-efficient regime. The key advantages of using Cyprus companies to structure international investments include, firstly, the ease with which corporate entities that hold the investments can be established and maintained. The registration of a company typically takes about a week, and it is at a comparatively low cost. When one is agonizing to place an investment, the speed with which the corporate entity can be established is paramount. Companies in the simplest form can take the formation of having one single person acting as director and secretary, and the company's annual fees include a levy of €350 and auditor's fees for the preparation of financial statements. Another reason investors choose Cyprus as the jurisdiction for structuring their global investments is its robust legal system. We're a country with a trustworthy and transparent legal system, which, as Anthony Antoniou previously mentioned, has English common law roots. This gives the confidence at all levels and in all elements of a transaction, including the drafting of a sale or a share purchase agreement, the enforceability on Cyprus companies of different obligations, the use of well-established financing agreements in, for example, leveraged property acquisitions in the UK or anywhere in the world, such as the LMA facilities, and the registration of charges on investments such as mortgages and other encumbrances. Last but not least, the very attractive and efficient tax regime. Cyprus's corporate tax is at the competitive rate of 12.5%, allowing investors to enjoy more profits out of their investments. We are an attractive jurisdiction for establishing holding companies due to our participation exemption regime, which in essence exempts dividend income and capital gains derived from the disposal of qualifying investments, again resulting in significant tax savings for investors. Due to our EU membership, with a Cyprus company, an investor gains access to the EU's common market, allowing the free movement of goods, services, capital, and people. This is of particular importance for UK investments, given the UK's departure from the EU. Finally, Cyprus has an array of double tax treaties in place, which allows the avoidance of double taxation on income earned in Cyprus and other corresponding countries. It is therefore unsurprising that the Cyprus company is on the map for global investments and that it is invariably used both for holding as well as for business operations. For investors who would like to scale up their investments and co-invest alongside others, our country offers one of the fastest solutions, which is the turning of the holding company to a registered alternative investment fund under the supervision of the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission. Such registration can take as little as 4 weeks, and it is based on the harmonized EU legislation as we have transposed it into a domestic Cyprus law. It is therefore the hub, and it provides for all types of funds that are suitable for the underlying assets invested in, as for example externally or internally managed funds, closed-ended or open-ended funds. I won't elaborate any further because there's a speech later on during the day on this. It is evident, though, how with flexibility and stability of our legal system, the Cyprus company enables the investments to scale and transform into a larger, investor-safe and regulated status. Finally, investors who would like to secure their investments' continuity and succession without having claims or inheritance laws dictating the fate of their investments, establish a trust and settle their assets wherever they are in the world into that trust. Assets settled into a Cyprus International Trust are protected from potential creditors' claims, spouses, or any person who may allege to be owed anything by an investor. Very importantly, Cyprus International Trust ensure confidentiality and safeguarded in that the trustee managing them can only disclose information about the assets, the beneficiaries, or anything related to the trust if compelled by competent authority, court, or the law. The taxation relating to trust is also efficient, and in specific dividend interests or royalties received by a trust are not taxable nor subject to withholding tax. So, as you can see, investors can ring-fence their business operations from active investments held by a Cyprus company to investment profits and other assets settled into a Cyprus trust and segregated from the rest of their operations. So it's not just the convenient location and the magnificent sun here. From the combination of corporate and tax benefits that our country offers, it is unsurprisingly that there is a steady rise of headquartering set up in our country. With the high quality and tangible solutions that Cyprus has available for investors at a personal and a corporate level, it is one of the most cost and tax efficient as well as trustworthy options for structuring global investments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your speech, Ms. Koukonis. Next we have Lucy Loizou, Managing Partner at the International Family Law Group LLP, with her speech on international families.
Γεια σας, good morning, καλημέρα, Christos Anesti σε όλους. Thank you very much, Sava, I can't see you there in the corner, for inviting us to come over from London to speak. And we're really pleased that we're doing this event in Cyprus and well as in London. Τα ελληνικά μου είναι λίγα, θα σας τα μιλήσω στα αγγλικά. Όταν έχετε any questions, please do ask me at the end. I'm going to be around for the rest of the day. So our topic today from me is slightly different to the topics that you've been hearing about so far. When people ask me what I do for a living, I say I divorce people for a living. I am an English family law solicitor practicing English family law, and I specialise in international family law cases. I advise my clients in relation to family law, and most of my cases have a Greek or a Cypriot element, hence why I am here. And we often deal with cases where there are international assets, international property, so that includes English property, Greek property, Cypriot property, property all over the world. I come from a firm called the International Family Law Group. We are a group of 16 lawyers in England. We only do international family law, and we specialise in divorce, finance and child-related work. Just a slide here that sets out the areas that we cover. We deal with divorce, we deal with jurisdiction, so the country in which people should divorce. We look at foreign marriages and divorces. We look at civil partnerships and dissolution of civil partnerships. From the children's side, we also deal with a great deal of areas. We cover adoption, we cover surrogacy, we cover parental responsibilities, we cover arrangements for children, child abduction, child relocation, i.e. moving abroad with a child, and also enforcement cases. So if there's a Cypriot financial order, how is it enforced in England? On the finances, we divide the money as well, so we look at financial outcomes on divorce. It's not unnoted that England is regarded as the divorce capital of the world. If you're the weaker financial party, it's always a good idea to try and start divorce proceedings in England, and that's the type of stuff that we advise on. We look at prenups, we look at postnups, we look at alternative ways of resolving matters to go to court. Now I'm just going to spend the next 10 minutes or so talking about some myths that I come across in my day-to-day practice, and some recommendations really. And you may say, well, why is this relevant to us? Why it's relevant is that if any of you here are lawyers, and I know there are lots of lawyers in the audience, and you come across a case where someone says to you, I need to get divorced. Do I get divorced in Cyprus? Do I get divorced in England? I've got arrangements, the children live in the UK or they live in Cyprus, and they need legal advice in England, then that's where we're here to help. And if similarly, if there's property in Cyprus and the couple are going through divorce proceedings, in England and you need help from that perspective, again, that's where we're here to help. So some myths then, just running through these. One of the top 10 myths is that people say to me, I'm married in Cyprus, Lucy. Θέλω να πιάσω διαζύγιον. I have to do it in the country where I was married. The answer is no, you don't. In England, we look at residence and domicile and where people are at the time they start divorce proceedings. A second myth, if the child's other parent refuses to allow me to relocate abroad with our child, there is nothing I can do. Again, this is wrong. Under English law, if someone wants to move back home from London to Cyprus or England to Cyprus, if the parent doesn't allow them to come to Cyprus permanently, then we can obtain the court's permission. Next point, another myth. I'm okay to make divorce claims in London even though we are not married to each other, as there is something called a common law wife. The answer is no. In England, if you are not married to somebody, then you do not automatically have the same rights and claims if you separate. Next point, my husband's foreign lawyer is dealing with the divorce and the finances, and all I have to do is to sign. When a client comes into my office and says, Ella, this is all I need to do, I just need to sign the papers, is that correct? The answer is no. Always ask your clients to take advice from specialists who know what they are doing. Another myth, I can just buy a child and adopt it from a third world country. Absolutely not. There are proper legal procedures that need to be followed. English courts can't touch my assets abroad. Real myth here. England can touch assets anywhere across the world in a divorce case. So if there are assets in Cyprus and your clients are getting divorced in England, an English court can make orders in respect of those assets. The next myth, it's not child abduction if I just come back home. So let's say we have a mother who gets on a plane and says, I'm coming back to Cyprus, I'm coming home, and she doesn't obtain the other parent's consent. That is child abduction, that's a criminal offence, and she could be imprisoned in England under English law. Another myth, marrying a British person guarantees I can live in the UK forever. No, that's not right. There are specific immigration issues that need to be considered. Another myth, England does not recognise polygamy or Islamic divorces. Not relevant to today, but again, that's a myth. And this is an important point. Any lawyer can do family law with international aspects. The answer is no. If you're not sure, take advice. So, next slide and final few slides. Top 10 recommendations in an international family law case. And the first thing isn't don't get married in the first place. The first recommendation is if there is an urgent breakdown of a relationship, if there is a breakdown of a relationship and there are international aspects, always encourage your clients to take advice. Consult a specialist. Many family lawyers in England, sometimes across the world, don't understand the international aspects of a case, so make sure you speak to someone that knows what they're doing. Take advice from the relevant countries. So if I've got a Cypriot case, if I've got a Greek case, I've got lawyers on board that I can speak to and say, do I start divorce proceedings in England? Do I start them in Cyprus? This one's a really important one. If you've got a client who wants to go abroad, always get the written permission of the other parent, either for a holiday or if you're moving permanently. Next one, stop your spouse from disposing of assets before a settlement. We've got big powers in England. We can freeze transactions. If properties are transferred, if they're sold, we can reverse all of that if it's done to defeat someone's claim. And final few points. Number one, don't rely on the legal advice of your spouse. It goes without saying that you should take your own independent legal advice. Don't represent yourself in any case with an international element. Again, take advice. As we talked about, number 3 there, we can take preventative action which will save legal costs later on. If your client is served with court papers in England, encourage them to take advice, but there may need to be a quick response. And finally, don't discuss the legal advice that your client receives with your spouse or your partner. So that is a whirlwind for me. I know it's a bit different to what we've been talking about, I hope, and it's been helpful as an initial insight. If anyone does have any questions on English family law and divorce, I'm around all day. Ευχαριστώ σας. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. I think you've put me off marriage for life, but thanks. So up next, we'll be hearing from Mr. Marios Stanoussis, who has been recently appointed the CEO of Invest-Cyprus. So I'd like to congratulate him on behalf of the association, and he'll be talking to us about Cyprus being a growing tech and investment gateway into the EU. Thank you, Mr. Stanoussis.
Thank you very much, Christos Anesti, and a big welcome to our guests from the UK and all invited people. Thank you to Savas for inviting us once more to be here with you. We have been attending Savas events in the UK for years now, and we are glad to see that the network is growing and giving a new impetus between the relations of Cyprus and UK, especially in business and investments. So, what does Invest-Cyprus do and what we are doing? We are the basically investment promotion agency of the country, which looks to the needs and caters to the requests of the foreign investors in Cyprus. Our mandate is threefold, and you can see the three important mandates that we have: promotion, facilitation, and advocacy and reform. Most people think that we only promote, we only go to events, we only have meetings, but this is one part which is very important, especially in strategic sectors and strategic markets, as we will see later. But there are two also other important pillars that we basically work on a daily basis, which is facilitation and advocacy and reform. Facilitation is basically, we not only try to help investors to launch, but we would like to be with them all the way to grow in Cyprus and expand their operations into the nearby markets if they are looking to expand there, and generally make it easy for them to grow in Cyprus. The reform, which is very important, we do analyze the legal and regulatory framework, and we see whether it's prohibitive or it's not so much friendly to foreign investors, and we make suggestions in order to further enhance the investments through a framework which is able to allow them to grow again. For this advocacy and reform, we are all open to suggestions that you have that will enable us to put it in front of the lawmakers. We don't have the ability to make the laws ourselves, but we introduce them to the government, to the ministries, to the parliament, in order to further help the business environment. Some demographics about Cyprus, I'm sure that you are aware of those, so I will not spend the time here. Moving a bit on why Cyprus, a lot of discussion previously and explanation on the advantages of Cyprus is not only the tax and regulatory and the high quality of lifestyle, but strategically for us, and we have been doing that for the last 4 years, we do not pitch just for the Cyprus market, we do pitch for a location which is in between and at the center of a global market of 1 billion people, and that is Europe, Middle East, North Africa. And if we do take the example of Egypt, a population of 100+ million people, Cairo is about 50 minutes flight, Tel Aviv, Israel is about 40 minutes flight, and Beirut, Lebanon is 25 minutes flight from Cyprus. So just as an example of where we are, and yet we are a full member of the British Commonwealth with excellent ties, and also a full member of the European Union. The positive economic outlook, I'm sure you have been following the developments and the figures over the last years, Cyprus has been doing very well in terms of growth and also navigated very well the COVID-19 pandemic. The GDP is estimated to be in between the ranges of 3.5% to 4% on growth, and as we have seen lately, the major rating agencies continue upgrading the Cyprus economy. Access to talent, being a full member of the European Union, we can access a pool talent of 500 million EU pool, plus the incentives that we are given by the government on the last 3 years allows for non-EU employees to be able to come to Cyprus with, I would say, very attractive incentives, tax and others, including members of their families, to be able to work in multinational companies in Cyprus. Basically, the location of Cyprus, as you very well know, and the frequent flight schedules, and we are working also to increasing some connections with some key cities in Europe and elsewhere to further strengthen the network. The fact that we have more than 65 double tax treaties and also excellent bilateral relations with all the countries in the region. The regulatory infrastructure, we do have in the room accountants and lawyers. The firms here and the people here have been servicing the international community for many, many years. And we do have reputable companies in Cyprus, as we're going to see a bit later, important multinationals. And the service that you get in Cyprus compared to other important jurisdictions is at par, yet is very cost competitive. Now, the new incentives package, which basically was introduced last year, and it was the, let's say, upgraded out of 2 other schemes, so this is version 3, if I may say, allows what we said before about the family relocation, the ability for non-EU employees to work in companies in Cyprus, while there are significant other important facilitation that we do for these companies, including the A to Z, when they decide to select Cyprus as a location. The tax regime, I think it will be also analyzed, and some things were highlighted before. It's not only the corporate tax that is important, and we realize this more and more. That's why the government is introducing personal tax incentives for the employees, which is very important, and you can see them here highlighted. You will have a presentation. If you have any questions on those, we'll be more than glad to assist you. But we try to balance and we try to offer a holistic solution, because investors do not just invest in countries. They invest in countries that offer solutions. And this is the approach that we have been taking the last 5 years, and we will be continuing on that line to offer solutions to the investors. Business support services, the big number of law firms, accounting firms, professionals here. You can see them on the slide. Very well experienced servicing, as we said, multinationals for many, many years. Low cost of doing business. Well, we have to admit that we are in Limassol, and we have to admit that Limassol has been growing very, very much, and a lot of investments have been happening in Limassol. Yet, Cyprus scores, and generally much lower than other EU jurisdiction in terms of doing business, in terms of cost of living, property. Again, Limassol in brackets, because we have seen lately the prices in Limassol to really going up, but we are seeing also investments in other cities, like in Larnaca, like in Nicosia, like in Paphos, and the professionals that are being paid with the salaries that we have in Cyprus compared to other jurisdictions. Again, it's very competitive. High quality of life, I think you are all aware. You are on the coast, and within 25-30 minutes you could be in the mountains skiing. So this is not just high quality lifestyle, but the safety and security that Cyprus has been also run by major important organizations like Value Penguin and many others as one of the top countries to live, work and invest. Priority pillars, just to highlight, we are not chasing many sectors. It's impossible for an investment promotion organization to be chasing all the investment sectors and the economic sectors. We have given targeted and very important efforts in the tech innovation R&D space. And that's where we have seen over the last 3 years an increase in the investment in Cyprus in the tech sector. And this continues and it will continue. The second sector, which is basically across economic sectors, but it has to do with greenfield foreign direct investment in hotels, thematic projects, energy-related projects, wellness centers, hospitals, and others, which require a significant ticket. So we do have a database at the organization, and we can showcase investment projects for interested investors across the country, in any city, and we can try to see if it matches your interest or your client's interest in order to begin a discussion with the project owners. These projects are usually owned by private sector, but they have all the licenses and they are mature for investment. In addition to that, with the government, we do have the ability to promote the government projects, which of course many of them they have to go through tendering and RFPs. The third and important pillar is the asset management and investment funds. Over the last 10 years, I would say, significant work has been put into the investment fund and asset management sector, and the assets management have been increasing on an average of 1.5 billion euros per year. That is investment funds and assets coming into Cyprus domicile funds every year. And this sector is promising and continues to grow. So these are the main ones that we are focusing on. International Business Center on Tech. I think you are all experiencing, if you have been around in Limassol, some of the tech companies that are already here. These are some brand names, and I will just highlight two examples. MUFG, which is a Japanese conglomerate, one of the most important conglomerates worldwide, has decided to invest in Cyprus with opening an operation with 300 people as a first stage. And also the other company, Murex, French multinational, one of the best employers worldwide with operations in 17 countries, have decided to set up a regional operations center in Nicosia. Right now they have about 150 people. Target is to grow to 300 by the end of the year. Now these companies, they don't just decide by looking at Cyprus. They do have consultants, they do have external firms where they ask them to benchmark jurisdictions and then make the proposal to the team that will decide at the multinational company. And in both cases, Cyprus scored at the highest. So for us, these are the best testimonials that yes, Cyprus can become an international and is already an important tech center. And we look forward to enrich further this cluster. The European Innovation Scoreboard, I think the Deputy Minister, ex-Deputy Minister have mentioned about that, so I won't spend any time on that. You have seen this slide in the morning. priority pillars, we discussed them just to save time. Opportunities exist across different sectors: tourism, hospitality, healthcare, tech parks, higher education, and facilities. Universities are also investing in Cyprus and also doing new partnerships in education with existing universities. And also the startups cluster with incubators and important programs that are promoted by the government to try to strengthen even further this sector. We mentioned about the funds and the increase of the funds. The long-term vision of Cyprus is the Plan 2035, and the strategy of Invest Cyprus is fully aligned with that plan, which is frequently revised. And basically, what does it say in one sentence? We want to make Cyprus to be one of the world's best countries to live, work, and do business in. These are some of the pillars of the strategy 2035, which is also available online if you want to download it. Some figures on the increase of foreign direct investment. As you can see, post-COVID recovery, with all the countries being ranked, Cyprus comes third worldwide, and mostly is due to the foreign investment in different sectors, but the technology sector is one of the highest. And we have also gone up 50 places in the FDI index that is being done by the Financial Times group. What we can do and how we can help you, from the time you decide or your client says that I'm considering Cyprus, or I want to see Cyprus, we can come in, we can give you all the data, all the information. We can make any meetings online or site visits arranged in order to help you put table Cyprus on the discussion. It's a very important step, the beginning, and then from there onward, once the decision is taken by your clients or by you or by the investors, we follow the process and we are with you all the way to help you launch, grow, and make sure also that your employees and the families are landing and are having a smooth, let's say, start here in the country. I don't know if the film is already arrived. It's already a short film just to highlight what some people working in Cyprus, professionals, are saying about the country.
For us, location is kind of the key feature for any new business that we develop. And if you look at Cyprus, Cyprus is ideally and strategically located in the East Mediterranean.
It really is at the center of where you want to be.
When Melco Resorts decided to expand beyond our Asian roots, we spent the better part of 2 years going around the globe looking for expansion opportunities. Ultimately, we decided on Cyprus for 3 reasons. The first of which is that Cyprus represents a unique geography. Secondly, the stability of the local government here was something that was very strong, very positive for our investment outlook. But third and most importantly was in fact the pro-business stance that the government really takes.
Investment decisions in any market have to rest on 4 main pillars: sound macroeconomic fundamentals, competent government, an efficient and equitable legal and judicial system, and a predictable fiscal environment. And Cyprus scores very highly on all 4. We are seeing an increase in the registration of managed specialty funds, which shows that there is liquidity ready to be invested in advanced financial products. What we want is to be an active contributor to the development and growth of Cyprus. We will seize every opportunity that arises.
If we look at what we have done so far, we have roughly invested about 300 million euros here in the facility that the interview is taking place. Looking forward, we are very keen to further invest in this infrastructure. Firstly, by looking forward to participate in the LNG markets that will be opening up here in Cyprus in the next few years. And we see that as a great future prospect for Cyprus and also for us and our infrastructure to further invest in this growing market.
The one big surprise we had was just how strong the local market was and the availability of local talent.
Cyprus definitely feels like a place where something is always happening. First of all, you have a great infrastructure here. Great hospitals, great schools, great roads, great airports to and from Europe and the rest of the world. Then, from a business perspective, you have a very reliable legal system that's fast, efficient, cost-effective, and that is supported by all of the excellent law firms that are here on the island, which are really market leaders in their respective fields. The Cypriots are incredibly proactive, incredibly dynamic, incredibly can-do people, and incredibly educated too. And everything that the Cypriot shipping maritime cluster needs is pretty much here. There is nothing better than to be running on the beach when the sun comes up. For me, it's fantastic.
If you're asking me what do I enjoy most in Cyprus, I would have a simple answer. It's the people. The people, the people, and the people. But also the hospitality, the friendliness, the warmth, and the beauty of this country.
This is an absolutely ideal place not only to work but also to live.
So from that standpoint, I think if Cyprus isn't on your radar already, it deserves to be. And if it's something that you looked at and decided it wasn't worth digging a little bit deeper, I encourage you to take a second look.
I have absolutely no hesitation whatsoever on a personal or professional level telling other would-be investors to hurry up and get over here to Cyprus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tanousis, and for the video as well. We now move on with the speech by Androula Bonjouri, a founder and CEO of the European Legal Training Center, and her speech will be titled The Importance of Training and Continuous Development of Employees Within Service Firms.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that video is a very hard act to follow. Congratulations, it's excellent. So my name is Androula. I am the CEO and the founder of the European Legal Training Center. We set up 2 years ago, and in the 2 years that we are operating, we have achieved great growth, thank you to the trust of many of the firms I see here today. Personally, I'm a lawyer. I have a lot of experience in litigation, in corporate law, and at the European Legal Training Center, we try to focus more on practical training. We have trained over 1,000 people here in Cyprus so far. We have also trained in Greece, and we are also a CPD provider in Africa. So I'm very, very pleased to be here today in general, especially because this is a conference that is aiming to promote cooperation between Cyprus and Britain. As a UK citizen and someone who was born in the UK, raised in the UK and schooled in the UK, any event like this is always going to be close to my heart, so I'd like to thank you for organising this event. So I think we've heard a lot today about why Cyprus, and what I would like to speak to you about is the human capital that we have here. We have first-hand experience of, especially in the legal and financial sector, how much knowledge and passion we have for education here in Cyprus. We've become an international hub, and I believe that the legal and the financial sector has really rose to the challenge and still wants to grow further. In general, we have many people in Cyprus with university degrees. This is the truth. We actually rank 3rd in the whole of the European Union for the amount of tertiary degrees that people have. especially in the ages of 25 to 34. But one thing that I do want to stress is that in Cyprus, education does not stop at the university door. We have a huge emphasis on continuous professional development in general. So in Cyprus, continuous professional development is seen as essential, not only for improving skills, the knowledge of its employees, but it is also to enhance productivity, increase our competitiveness, and to support economic growth. In Cyprus at the moment, we have a number of initiatives, being an EU country, that we have access to. We have the Cyprus Human Resource and Development Agency that offers funded training in the areas of hospitality, tourism, and business. We have vocational education training programs that are offered by the government. We also have a number of professional associations that offer training programs to all of its members. We have a lot of EU-funded projects that aim to upskill our workforce. We also have private accredited learning centres, and over the last few years, much like with the European Legal Training Centre, we are all putting our feet in the ground to help to upskill the workforce. Many of the people I see here today are also from the UK and are actually trainers in the UK and have come to Cyprus to share their wealth of knowledge, their training expertise, and I see this is going to happen in general now. So that can only be positive news for us here in Cyprus. So how can a business in the UK tap into the pool of talent that we have here in Cyprus? Firstly, there is the idea that you will be able to recruit from Cyprus for businesses in the UK. Cyprus, as we've said, is highly educated, and it is also a multilingual workforce. Many professions, especially the financial and the legal sector, everyone is fluent in English, which is very relevant to the UK. So it's an attractive destination to find people with a diverse set of skills. Another way you can tap into the pool of talent we have here is through partnerships. So UK companies can partner with local companies to access their network of skilled professionals. There is also training and development. We're seeing now that we as a company have been contacted by UK companies looking to bring their employees to Cyprus for training. So that's another way in which we can join together in order to enforce continuous development of our employees. Something else that we're seeing, and I think a lot of our speakers have touched upon already, is establishing of remote teams in Cyprus. So because we have a large pool of talented professionals, yes, we can bring people from other countries into Cyprus. It's possible. But we must not forget that there is also a lot of local talent here. We see this firsthand every day through our training programs. So because of our strategic location, something that we've already touched upon with other speakers, setting up remote teams is attractive, especially because we are at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa. So remote teams is also an option for UK companies to access the workforce here. And then there's outsourcing. So outsourcing is also something we are seeing quite often. I know of a lot of law firms that we have trained who want to learn about, for example, the UK market or the UK legal system because they are being outsourced from a UK company or a UK law firm. So that's another area in which we will be able to cooperate in the future. And lastly, I would like to talk about why employee training is so important. We obviously experience the benefits of employee training. The knowledge that our students get at the end of a training program is going to help them to be more productive. And just to let you know that according to IBM, 84% of employees in the best performing organizations receive the training they need. And that is compared to 16% in the lowest performing organizations. Gallup has also found that organisations that make strategic investments in employee training and development report 11% greater profitability. So in today's changing market, employees are also noting that in order to achieve job satisfaction, they also want to see career development. And you can do that by offering continuous training to your employees. So training your workforce can enhance your brand, your reputation, the bottom line, and can also improve employee satisfaction. And so I will leave with that note, very short and sweet. I will be around if anyone has any questions about training in the legal services sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrula. Up next is our third panel for the day. The focus is on relocation to Cyprus and investment opportunities. And the panelists are as follows, and I'd like to welcome them each to the stand. George Haralambous, who's an associate at Georgiadis and Pelidis LLC. Michalis Prodromou, who's a managing director at A. Prodromou & Co. Limited. Andrea Andreou, who's the managing partner of Athos Group in Cyprus and co-founder of Global Co-Representative Office and president of the Cyprus Cannabis Association. Followed by George Avramidis, who's a partner at Pelagias Christodoulou Brachas. Elada Palmiri, who's a director at Multipole Engineering. And finally, my co-presenter, Maria Pavlou, who's also the moderator of this panel, who's an associate lawyer in the corporate department of Kinanis LLC.
Basically, the third panel, as Lina just said, will be focusing on the relocation to Cyprus and investment opportunities. The structure of the panel will be a bit different than the previous ones in the sense that each panelist will proceed to make a presentation or a speech, and then questions that might arise from the public or me will be followed. So the first speaker is George Haralambous with his presentation on why Cyprus is a better place to relocate.
Can we put the slide up? Can we put the slide up, please? So, hello everybody, my name is George Haralambous, and allow me to give you a brief outline of some of the most important reasons which make Cyprus, generally speaking, truly the perfect place to move your business. Some of the reasons have been briefly touched upon already, but I will expand a bit more. So, probably the most important reason why one should consider moving their business to Cyprus is the fact that we have a very low corporate tax rate. It's one of the lowest in the EU. It's a flat rate of just 12.5%. So by moving your business to Cyprus, you will be paying less corporate tax than pretty much almost anywhere else in the EU. Secondly, Cyprus being a member state of the EU, we apply the so-called EU Parent Subsidiary Directive, which provides that if there are companies that are tax domiciled in different member states of the EU, and one of them is a subsidiary of the other, then any payment of dividends from the subsidiary to the parent incurs no tax liabilities, neither at the level of the paying subsidiary, nor at the level of the receiving parent. So what does this mean in practice? It means that you can have a group of companies all over the EU, which can include Cyprus companies that are either parents or subsidiaries of other companies in other EU member states without having to worry whether any tax liabilities will be incurred upon the payment of dividends. Furthermore, Cyprus has, generally speaking, a very attractive tax regime compared to what applies to other jurisdictions. For example, there is, generally speaking, no capital gains tax at all on anything other than the disposal of immovable property. So, no capital gains tax on the disposal of shares, debentures, etc., which is quite advantageous compared to what applies in other jurisdictions. Additionally, Cyprus has signed a very big number of double tax treaties with other countries. According to the official website of the Ministry of Finance, Cyprus currently has double tax treaties with 67 different countries. This is obviously advantageous for anyone who wants to be able to know upfront about the allocation of taxes, the rate of taxes they will be paying, in which jurisdiction, etc. So that's quite an important advantage. So if you move your business to Cyprus and you do business with any of those 67 countries, which includes the UK and basically all major economies in the world, you don't have to worry about any unpredictable issues concerning double taxation or allocation of taxes within the relevant jurisdictions. And in addition to that, the Cyprus tax regime offers another advantage in relation to this. Even if there is no double tax treaty with a relevant jurisdiction, then any entity or individual which is tax domiciled in Cyprus, who gets taxed in another jurisdiction on foreign income, they will get a unilateral tax relief of an equal amount in Cyprus. So this means that even if you just so happen to do business with a jurisdiction with which there is no double tax treaty, again, you can get the benefit of this unilateral tax relief. Another important advantage, I believe, which Cyprus offers is what is known as the notional interest reduction. Basically, if you have a Cyprus company and you want to finance its business using equity finance as opposed to debt finance, then a so-called notional interest is deducted from the relevant taxable income of the company, and tax is only paid on the reduced amount. So there's a formula according to which this notional interest is calculated, and there is a ceiling as well. The notional interest can only reach up to 80% of the relevant taxable income of the company, but that ceiling is quite high. So in practice, what this means is the following. If a Cyprus company generates all its taxable income from activities that were financed using qualifying equity finance, then its taxable income will be reduced by 80%, so it will only pay tax on 20%. Combine that with our low corporate tax rate of 12.5%, and the effective corporate tax that this company will be paying is only 2.5%, which is quite a low effective tax rate. These are the major reasons due to which Cyprus is a really tax-friendly jurisdiction to which one should consider moving their business. Couple that with the common law legal system which was discussed earlier, which we have, which allows for greater certainty and familiarity as well for those who do business already in England. And add in the fact that Cyprus has been a competitive business center for the past decades. What you get is that by moving your business to Cyprus, you are not trailblazing. On quite the contrary, you are moving your business to a trusted jurisdiction with experienced professionals who are always standing by and willing to help and able to help. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George. Indeed, the incentives explained are some of the major ones for relocating and doing business in Cyprus. So, In your opinion, which of the tax advantages that Cyprus has to offer is the least known one, taking also into consideration its importance?
Thank you, that is a good question. Well, if I had to choose one of the points I mentioned, I would say the unilateral tax relief. It's not something common across the globe. Not many jurisdictions offer such unilateral tax relief, and as I mentioned briefly earlier, it's a very big advantage for any business to know at the outset where they will be taxed, at what rate, and the fact that we provide this unilateral tax relief, even for countries with which we have no bilateral double tax treaty, really allows companies to plan ahead, optimize their tax structure, and I think this is, obviously it's no secret, but it's something that we as Cyprus should advertise even more, because it's really something which gives us another edge when it comes to the general tax regime in comparison to other competitive jurisdictions, I would say.
Totally, I agree. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria.
Now moving on to Michalis Prodromou, who will also cover the tax incentives for people and businesses relocating to Cyprus.
So thank you, Maria, for the introduction, and thank you, George, for your presentation and the information provided, which actually will blend nicely with my presentation. So, as Benjamin Franklin once said, there are just two things certain in life. The first one is death, and the second one are taxes. Unfortunately, I cannot do anything about the first one, but we do have solutions for the second. So today's presentation is going to be based on a real-life scenario, and we're going to go through the most favorable tax regimes that Cyprus can offer. So, several months back, Mr. Smith approached our firm to provide advice on his relocation to Cyprus. Mr. Smith has 3 kids. He has 2 sons and a daughter. His first son has been working for Microsoft for several years. He is currently resigning in order to have his own startup. He wants to set up an application that deals with artificial intelligence. His second son has been in the construction and developing industry in the UK, and he wants to pursue that in our island. The daughter, she's in love with Greece, and she actually wants to invest in properties in the beautiful islands of Greece. So here's going to be a proposal for Mr. Smith, and of course, each client might differ. So it is proposed to set up a Cyprus holding company. A Cyprus holding company has many tax advantages. We're going to go through the most important ones. The profits of all of the group will be consolidated and in this Cyprus holding company. Cyprus has more than 65 double tax treaties, which means that dividends will mostly be paid gross to the holding company, as also being a member of the European Union, we have access to the EU Parent Subsidiary Directive, which again means that any dividends paid between European companies, subject to conditions which can be easily met, will not be subject to any withholding tax. Moving on to the first son, we're going to set up a Cyprus intellectual property company, which will develop the AI startup. Now, Cyprus has one of the most favorable intellectual property tax regimes, actually all over the world, which, as George has mentioned, the effective tax rate can go as low as 2.5%. Cyprus has a flat tax rate of 12.5%, but assuming that, and the most important condition is that the R&D, the research development, will be performed within the Cyprus company, which means that the board of directors needs to have the brains to develop this intellectual property. So any income generated through the royalties will be subject to the exemption. Moving on to the second son, we're going to set up a third company, which is going to be the Cyprus Property Developing Company. For example purposes, he's going to buy a plot of land and is going to build, could be a factory, it could be a residential, it could be a hotel, any type of property. And one of the most favorable tax regimes that we have is the notional interest deduction, which is applicable on new equity. So for example, instead of provide a finance from the Cyprus holding company to the property company, we're going to convert it into equity. Through that conversion, the Cyprus property developing company will be eligible again for an exception of up to 80%, which effectively the corporation tax will be 2.5%. Moving to the daughter, that she wants to buy a nice villa in the cosmopolitan island of Mykonos, we're going to again finance the Greek company through the Cyprus holding company. In 10 years' time, the family might decide to sell this villa, and let's say that we bought it for 10 million today and we're selling it for 20 million in 10 years' time, so there's a capital appreciation of 10 million, and instead of selling the asset itself, we'll sell the shares of the Greek property holding company, so the Cyprus holding company will sell the shares, and in such a case, from the Cyprus perspective, sale of titles is not subject to any tax, so it's going to be the 10 million tax-free for the Cyprus holding company. Of course, in any case, we're advising from Cyprus perspective, and we need also the tax advisors from either the country that the client is resident or where the transaction takes place to have their advice as well. The beauty of the structure is that all the profits of the subsidiaries will be paid back to the Cyprus holding company without any withholding tax, and subsequently this will be paid to Mr. Smith again without any withholding tax. The reason for that is the non-domicile status law that we have, that it was introduced back in 2016, where it will exempt the new tax resident from passive income, which is applicable on dividends, 17%, on interest, 30%, and 3% on rent. We can say that Mr. Smith has been quite greedy and holding all the shares from himself. So in case he decides to give any of his shares to his children, it's going to be free of tax. And if something such happens to Mr. Smith, again, no tax will be paid because we do not have inheritance tax in Cyprus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michalis. We can all agree that the beauty of the structure is also the villa in Mykonos. So let's proceed with the questions. Can you please let us know how long does it take for the structure presented during your speech to be implemented, and whether all the tax benefits explained can coexist at the same time?
Okay, so in order to form the structure, once it is agreed with the client, it takes approximately a month or 30 working days to be formed. And yes, all the tax benefits could happen simultaneously, but not mutually exclusive.
Okay, and also would you want to elaborate on how the notional interest deduction is calculated?
Sure, so as far as the notional interest deduction, it really depends on the new equity. So let's say, for example, the new equity is going to be 100 million euro. So we're having a fixed rate of 5% plus the 10-year government bond of Cyprus, which currently, if I'm not mistaken, is approximately 4%. So it's 5 plus 4, 9%. 9% on the 100 million, it's 9 million, which means that 9 million is going to be the notional interest deduction, and there's always a cap of 80% on the profits of the company.
Thank you very much. So next we have Yorgos Avramidis, and his speech will be focusing on the growing fund industry in Cyprus.
Hello everyone. So I'll make a short presentation on the fund industry in Cyprus. So Cyprus is becoming one of the growing high-growth investment centers in Europe. All investments in Cyprus are under the supervision of the competent authority, which is the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission, which is CySEC. Currently, in Cyprus, there are 9.5 billion assets under management. We're going to explain what is an alternative investment fund, which is the most popular type of fund in Cyprus. So it's a collective investment undertaking which raises capital, external capital from investors and invests it according to a defined strategy. There are different type of strategies where you can invest. Most in Cyprus, we can see that mostly the investment funds invest in private equity, and other is real estate, other funds, hedge funds, and fund of funds, and other types of investments. So in terms of structuring an investment fund, there are different types you can have in terms of a legal form. It's a variable capital investment company, it's a fixed capital investment company, it's a common fund or a limited partnership. This is the vehicle you can use in order to license it as an investment fund. And of course, you need to consider all the main stakeholders around the fund, which is of course the appointment of an external fund manager, unless the fund is self-managed, an administrator, a depository, and an auditor. And some main advantages in relation to funds. It's of course the attractive tax incentives, the no restriction on the types of investments. You can set up an umbrella fund, meaning that you can have different compartments, and each compartment have a different strategy and separated pool of assets. It's the EU passporting rights to market the fund within the EU freely, and of course the low cost in setting up and maintenance costs, especially compared to other EU jurisdictions. And of course the highly skilled professional services we have in Cyprus, which is growing very rapidly in the past years. And lastly is the tax. Of course, we know tax is one of the main reasons for someone to invest in Cyprus, and the Cyprus funds can be no exception to this. My colleagues have extensively covered all the tax benefits on the corporate side. I'll just mention a few in terms of the investors. There's no tax on the dividends of a non-domiciled individual, no tax on the redemption of the shares or units, and no capital gain tax on the disposal of shares or units unless a real estate is involved. So thank you very much. That was it, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Yorgos. So in terms of fund setup, can you please elaborate on which is the most common legal form used in Cyprus and which type of fund is the most popular and why?
Thank you, Maria. Of course, in terms of structuring a fund, everything depends on the needs of the client or of what you're going to achieve. But in Cyprus, the most popular legal form is the Gbcy, which is the variable capital investment company, which essentially one of its main characteristics is that the share value is not nominal but is variable, and in this way you achieve subscription redemptions of the investments easily, and of course you need a pre-approval from CySEC in order to incorporate such an entity. You can have it either as a public or a private company. And the most popular type of fund since its introduction in 2018, it's the Registered Alternative Investment Fund, which it's really a very popular type of alternative investment fund. And one of its main characteristics is that because it's not directly regulated by CySEC, the supervision goes with the alternative, with AIFM, Alternative Investment Fund Manager, and in this way you can achieve a quicker authorization in just 1 month compared to 6 months, what is the Alternative Investment Fund. and it's a lot more cost efficient and fast in its process. Thank you.
So moving on to the ladies of the panel, we have Andrea Andreou, who is the managing partner of Athos Group, co-founder of Global Co-Representative Office and president of the Cyprus Cannabis Association, and her presentation will be focused on the medical cannabis investment opportunities in Cyprus and the latest news around the matter.
Thank you, Maria. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and many thanks to Savas Kyriakidis for giving me the opportunity to speak on this sensitive and often controversial topic. Reference during my presentation is made, of course, only to legal cannabis, by which I mean industrial cannabis, also known as hemp, and medical cannabis. Allow me to briefly explain the background of how I became so deeply entrenched in this fascinating sector. It's a question that I'm often asked. My interest was piqued a few years ago during a pavement chat with my elderly neighbour, Mrs. Maritza, whose husband was suffering from advanced stages of cancer. She was distraught about the inaccessibility and expense of cannabis oil to help alleviate her husband's pain. That would, she said, allow him to pass with some dignity. Soon after, in early 2029, during a business trip to South Africa, Athos Group was requested for a family office to set up 2 Cyprus corporate investment vehicles for the purposes of medical cannabis production in Lesotho. My first internal reaction was one of trepidation. After all, cannabis can only be a criminal activity, right? Wrong. At that morning meeting, I was ignorant. By the evening, and after several hours of research, I had become a cannabis activist and understood my dear neighbour's plight. I learned that legal cannabis is one of the fastest growing market sectors globally, with projections for hemp anticipated at $14 billion by 2026 and $56 billion by 2028 for medical cannabis. In Cyprus, a legislative framework had already been laid down in 2016 for production and export of hemp. A medical cannabis law followed in 2019, albeit there had been relatively little local activity. One of the most significant facts that determined my future cannabis path is the human endocannabinoid system, which regulates and controls almost every aspect of our moment-to-moment functioning. Discovered in the 1960s by the late Israeli professor Raphael Mechoulam, the endocannabinoid system is currently at the center of renewed international research and drug development. Armed with all this fascinating data, during 2019, we formed the Cyprus Cannabis Association under the auspices of the Cyprus Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I continue to hold the position of president for a second term. The main objectives of CICA are to educate, lobby, and connect. We are advancing the interests of a responsible, compliant, transparent, and high-quality cannabis industry. Our relentless efforts to create awareness resulted in a steady stream of inquiries from local as well as international prospects, including Canada, Israel, South Africa, and of course, the UK, looking for an EU base from which to set up and or further expand their cannabis operations. To ensure we could easily access the necessary practical know-how and experience to service these prospects, we took the further initiative of forming Global Go, an international network of experts and cannabis consultants headquartered in California. Around this time, we were also instructed by a Swiss-based client to register under the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission an alternative investment fund manager that had plans to create a sub-fund exclusively targeted at cannabis investments. So, what are the opportunities? Let's start with hemp, which was unfortunately banned in the 1930s for being a drug. Fast forward to 2023, and thankfully, hemp is firmly back on the global agenda, having become legal again in recent years. Indeed, a report published in December of 2022 by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development acknowledges the significant economic opportunities offered by the growing hemp market, which all countries can capitalize on. As a renewable product, the opportunities are sustainable. This is extremely important as countries try to boost their economies while protecting the environment. What about medical cannabis? Europe has been paving the way for cannabis adoption with a proper global and quality perspective since 2016. UK and Germany have the largest patient base. Numbers and activities are rapidly increasing across Europe and the world. As access increases for patients in Europe, the EU standards treating cannabis as a pharmaceutical GMP product will increase adoption as well as confidence to solidify cannabis herbal medicine's place within the pharmaceutical world. Already, Big Pharma has made inroads, like the $6.7 billion purchase by Pfizer of Arena Pharmaceuticals. Closer to home, in late last year, Hellenic Dynamics, the Greek cultivator and supplier of finished pharmaceutical standard medical cannabis, became the first pure-play cannabis cultivator in history to list on the London Stock Exchange, valuing the company at £312 million. Cannabis markets and entrepreneurs are, however, not without problems. Education, politics, and regulations have been a hindrance to the industry. Regardless, though, of difficulties, it is now only a minority who do not accept that people should have access to cannabis for the treatment of various ailments from cancer, epilepsy, MS, Alzheimer's, and many more. The size of the European healthcare market and sustained momentum of medical cannabis within it are guaranteed. In Cyprus, a feasibility study is underway. I am more than pleased to be involved as an external expert working in close collaboration with the consulting firm appointed. Our aim is to ensure Cyprus is properly positioned to maximise the opportunity to attract foreign investments, generate revenues, reactivate the agricultural sector, and create jobs across the full spectrum of professional and healthcare services. You will hear today, or have heard already indeed, from my fellow speakers about the numerous benefits of why Cyprus is an ideal base from which any cannabis business can operate, either onshore for production and international export, and/or as a headquartering base for their international operations, marketing, and distribution activities. We at Athos Group and Global Go are ready to assist, advise, and support investors in the setup and ongoing management of their corporate vehicles, be they cannabis-related or otherwise. Thank you for your valuable time. I'd be pleased to amplify on any part of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. It is indeed a very interesting, evolving market, and we hope to see more development soon. So assuming, given also the recent regulatory framework in Cyprus, assuming that anyone of us here is a potential investor with a business plan relating to herb or medical cannabis, how can you be of assistance?
Okay, well, as I said, one of the reasons why we joined up with Global Go is because there is hardly any experience in Cyprus. It's a new sector. The world is on fire, of course, but Cyprus is taking things slower. Hence the feasibility study. That said, we've had, and I repeat, a steady stream of inquiries. We've had to reject some of them because of lack of readiness. That said, when they come, we will, as a first stop, examine their business plan. Hemp, there are no restrictions to the number of licenses that can be issued. Still, it is a fairly taboo and stigmatized topic for many. So we would have a look at that business plan. We would advise, we provide strategic consulting advice. Global Go has been responsible for about 99%, or had a 99% success rate in all the licenses that they have managed so far. So we rely fairly heavily on that expertise. They would come in, we would examine that business plan. Medical cannabis is a wholly different ballgame, of course, because it's not for the light-hearted. It's a long-term business plan that runs into several millions. So in any event, it would be a strategic consulting approach initially. And then, depending on that, we would do whatever we have to do, of course, to set up the necessary structure. As I said, that could be a fund, that could be a private company, and then provide the ongoing management and administration and any other advice that they may need to implement. Global Go does have at least, I think, about 15 technological apps at the moment that will assist in the proper running of that business once it's established. So there are a good range of services that we would offer that are most certainly out of the ordinary, and I think anybody interested can have a look at our leaflets outside to see that list and how we can help.
Yes, basically the full spectrum of services.
The full spectrum, yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
And relying, of course, on the expertise of external experts is essential. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So the final panelist is Elada Palmiri, who is Director of Multipool Engineering, and her speech will be focusing on the investment in technology, and specifically AquaSmart, which will elaborate it further during her speech.
Είναι το λάθος βίντεο. Πρέπει να πάμε λίγο πίσω. Hello everyone. For as long as I can remember, Cyprus has been a very popular and attractive service provider destination. Such services vary from traveling and tourism to the provision of financial management, accounting, and legal services. And it is not a coincidence that 55% of the Cyprus workforce is at least trained to a bachelor's degree level and even higher. Having such a well-trained and well-educated personnel is one of the major reasons that makes Cyprus a popular hub for investors, especially those looking to invest in the technology sector. Technology itself is rapidly evolving, and new technological advancements make their appearance in our lives every day, making their use an integral part of our daily routines. Inevitably, Cyprus, being a member of the European Union family as well, has largely been influenced and affected by the fast-paced evolution of technology. In the light of the above, Cyprus government introduced various incentives and schemes in an attempt to attract more businesses, investments, and more talented people from abroad to our island. Such incentives and schemes are part of a wider strategy of establishing our island as one of the top destinations to seek for the provision of services. And we, as professionals, we look forward to establishing new long-lasting relationships based on mutual respect and trust, with one and only goal: to provide our clients and partners with the most valuable services. And that brings me for the reason of being here with you today. I am Elada Palmiri, Executive Director of Multipool Engineering Limited, a company founded in 2011, which focuses on the provision of engineering services suitable for both private and public swimming pools, whether used for recreation, rehabilitation, or athletic purposes. Our services include design and construction of new swimming pools and spas, renovation of remodeling of existing pools and spas, water features and accessories, general maintenance and service of pools. And due to the latter one, the maintenance and service of pools, the idea of AquaSmart was born. AquaSmart is our new line of business. Our passion for excellent service, evolution, and automation, as well as our commitment to offering solutions that both meet the needs of our clients and are also environmentally friendly, has led to the creation of innovative water solutions under AquaSmart. Such solutions aim to secure the health and safety of people who use pools, require less use of chemicals to guarantee the best pool water quality, and save money and time for those who either own or manage the pools. Using the Internet of Things, known as IoT, which enables the connection of physical objects and devices to the Internet, we manage to collect and exchange data between devices and systems, which allows us to automate processes and services. Based on this technology, we are proud to present Kraton, our new Wi-Fi kit. Kraton is designed to provide you with a simple way of remotely monitoring and controlling your pool's chemical levels and water quality. Particularly, it monitors the pH, ORP, and temperature of your swimming pool. The pH readings are automatically temperature compensated. Using these measurements, the residual-free chlorine and chlorine monoxide are automatically calculated. All this data is then uploaded to cloud, which allows for remote readings on your smart device, your phone, tablet, or PC. These measurements are taken every 30 seconds, tested in precision, giving you 8,640 unit measurements per day. Kraton comes with all necessary components for operating autonomously and with a built-in software suitable for setup, calibration, collection of all measurements and sending them to the eIoT platform, and communication with other similar Wi-Fi kits. For Kraton's functionality, the user must create an account with the eIoT platform. When pH and ORP measurements are above or below predetermined values, then the assigned users will receive an alarm message on their smart device, similar to that. By saving these measurements, the user, and in particularly public pool owners, can keep records on chemical levels used for each time period, providing them with arithmetic values to compare consumption. The kit can also provide detailed reports which can be handed to local quality control authorities for supervision and checking whether the water complies with industry standards. These measurements are also requested by tour operators to be handed as evidence to examine the possibility of including a holiday resort or hotel in their destination packages. They want to ensure that they offer their clients the most secure and safe pools for their vacations. By installing our Wi-Fi kit, pool owners, management companies, and technicians are given the opportunity to improve customer experience by ensuring their health and safety while enjoying swimming, save time and money, enhance employee productivity, integrate and adapt business models, and last but not least, generate more revenue. IoT encourages companies to rethink the ways they approach their businesses and gives them the necessary tools to improve their business strategies. Our team of experts is willing to help you create the ideal pool water environment for you and your lovely guests. Please feel free to contact us for your private demonstration of Kraton at your own premises. And remember, this is not just another service or an additional luxury. It acts as a safety card for us and for all the people visiting Cyprus, for holidays, to work, for relocation. An advanced technology in Cyprus, because in Cyprus we care. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Lada. I totally agree with you that it's an important device which will help make people's life easier, especially thinking that it helps with meeting health and safety standards and monitor the water quality of swimming pools. So can you please tell us a bit more about Kraton? Has already been installed and running, and if so, shall we expect more remote readings in the future?
Yes, thank you, Maria. We have already installed Kraton in 5-star hotels in Paphos, Agia Naba, and Limassol. We are in collaboration with the Cyprus sports organization, Gbcy. We have already installed Kraton at the Limassol Olympic pool, and it's running, and we are looking forward to installing in the rest of the Cyprus. And for the future, we are already experimenting of measuring whether the water in swimming pools is contaminated. So we get an indication whether we should look further to investigate what is polluting our water. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public has any question before we proceed with our coffee break? Okay, so that's it from us. Thank you very much for listening. We can proceed to a 10-minute break and then get back for the remaining 2 panels.